Welcome to Advent of Tessellations 2024. My name is Madonna Yoder, and you're joining hundreds of folders around the world on this 25-day journey into the infinite world of repeating patterns folded from a single sheet of paper. You'll discover many different twists in this challenge, building up to advanced patterns with hybrid hexagon twists. On day 18 of Advent of Tess, we are going to be using the exact same twists as day 17, but this time, instead of twists being next to each other on the same side of the paper, like these triangles and this triangle and this hybrid hexagon, all the twists are going to be on the opposite side of the page from the twist next to them. And these are the same twists even down to the handedness of the hexagons. So we're still using the left-handed threefold hybrid hexagons and the right-handed closed hexagons. Yeah, let's dive in and start folding. I'm using a 24-fold triangle grid on a hexagon, and if you'd like instructions on how to fold this grid and the crease pattern for what we will be folding today, make sure you're signed up for the email reminders at training.gatheringfolds.com/advent. So for starting this pattern, we're going to return to some of the things we were doing in the very first few days of Advent of Tess this year, with folding triangle twists, alternating sides in the center. Today we're folding them closer together than we were doing in the early days of Advent of Tess this year. And one of the cues for this would be to look at the particular center point. And I'll go ahead and write an A, very small, right on that center point. But I'm going to help you set up the first triangle twist based on grid lines and the corners of the paper, which, by the way, will be true whether you're folding on 24, 32, or any number of divisions. So the first thing I'm looking for is a grid line coming up from this bottom right corner, and I'm making it a mountain fold, one grid spacing away from the corner of the paper, and that's away to the right. And then my second mountain fold will be a pleat going to the left. I'm going to have my mountain 2 spaces away from the corner of the paper, and my valley fold for this pleat will be 1 spacing away from the corner of the paper. So this is going to fold down over the corner. So the mountain is now laying in line with the edge of the paper, and where these two mountains meet, we will have a third pleat going out. This will be a closed triangle twist, and that mountain will pass 1 spacing away from the corner of the paper. So zooming in, we have our pleat coming down to this bottom corner where the mountain is 1 space away from the corner and the valley is further away. On this corner on the left, we have our valley 1 spacing away and our mountain 2 spacings away from the corner, above the corner. And up here on the top right, we have the mountain 1 spacing away and the valley further out. So with that in place, we can go ahead and squash our first closed triangle twist of the day. From here, I'm going to flip the paper over. I'm going to pay particular attention to where the center of the paper is, and notice that these 2 folds are going around the center and this one is going out to the edge. And I'm going to grab this pleat in particular as I flip over. Now I can either, since I marked it, look through the paper with a little bit of light and see, and this is easier to see for me than it is to show on the video, see where that center point is. I can also follow the creases from my corners in and find my center point here, which will be labeled B. So from there, I need to fold a closed triangle twist on both of these two pleats that are going around the center, and I'm leaving the pleat going out to the edge blank. These triangle twists are going to be as close as possible to their neighbors on the other side. So the valley fold coming out of here is going to come right to that closed triangle hole. The mountain fold will be one space further away. We've got this existing mountain fold coming in, and when I fold my new pleat that I drew on into place, I'm going to erase the extension of the existing mountain fold that goes past the point of intersection, putting in a third mountain fold and laying that mountain down on the valley further out from our center point so that we can have all of our three pleats arranged in the same left-handed orientation and squash the new closed triangle twist. From here, we may as well fold the pleat that we need another closed triangle on this side instead of continuing exactly around in the same order we've been going, just to minimize times flipping the paper. And so we're going to have the same reference for that one, where the valley fold is going to come straight to that triangle hole. And one thing to notice here is these valley folds are also, well, all of these folds that we're making are missing the corner of the paper by one spacing, whether it's the valley or the mountain that's closest to the corner. And we're going to see that pattern again here, where the valley is missing the corner by one spacing, and then the mountain is one space further out. And likewise, as I'm folding that new pleat into place, I'm also erasing the existing pleat as it passes my target grid intersection and putting in the third direction of pleat, both the mountain and the valley underneath, and squashing that closed. Taking those two parallel pleats in my right hand, I'll flip the paper over, so we're returning to side A, and I'm going to be setting up closed triangle twists on both of these pleats with a triangle wrap in between. So especially if you completed day 15, you're very familiar with these triangle wraps, but also if you've completed up to day 5, these triangle wraps are familiar from there too. So I'm going to have my valley folds for these new twists coming straight from the closed triangle holes. The mountain folds, one spacing further from the holes. I've got my existing mountain folds. And I'm going to start by setting up this top one. And notice, since I drew on this valley underneath, I can see exactly where the new direction of mountain folds needs to stop. Specifically 2 spaces from the center of my 3-way intersection of mountain folds for the new closed triangle. And then, if that is my new mountain, that means that my new valley is not going through point A, it's going on the opposite side of the mountain. And so my valley down below can continue to meet that valley and split and head off to the edge. while the mountains in here are going to follow that bounce in the valley. And we're also going to see a little segment of mountain between, well, making this a three-way intersection of mountains and going between these two three-way intersections. And in order to get this to lay flat, I need to lift up and finish the three-way intersection for my second triangle there, which is going to put another valley fold coming out of the three-way intersection of mountains in there. And with that set up in place, I can go ahead and have these two twists set up and the triangle wrap flat in between them. So here everything's flat except for these triangle twists, and you can squash them kind of in whatever order you prefer. I think that if I squash this top one first, it'll provide a more stable area to squash the bottom one, but it's somewhat arbitrary. So with these twists in place, it's time to squash the twist that we left as a wrap on the back. Flipping over to the B side, I'm going to flip the free pleat that's heading out to the edge of the paper so I can squash this third twist on side B. Now I'm going to come back to side A and I'll orient. Let's see, this is the same orientation as the crease pattern if you have that in, well, not quite. This is the same orientation as the crease pattern because in the crease pattern we have folds going horizontal and not vertical. If you have the crease pattern from signing up for the email reminders, then this will be the orientation that that is in. And the next thing that I want to do is fold a twist on this same side that I'm looking at on the crease pattern. So I want to fold a twist on a pleat coming from the other side of the paper because that's the only condition where we are going to see another twist on this side. And one of the things I can read in the crease pattern is spacing for how far on this pleat am I going to put the center of the next twist. And specifically one of the features that I see, because when I'm looking at crease patterns, I'm mostly looking at where the pleats are in relation to each other, not how the triangles are twisted or how any of the other twists are twisted, because that's going to change once they're folded, but the pleats are always staying in the same orientation. So one thing that I'm seeing in that crease pattern is a mountain fold, which here is under this pleat, and another parallel mountain fold 2 grid spacings away. And both this pleat that I said I wanted to fold the twist on and this new mountain fold are headed into the closed hexagon twist. So lifting up, basically opening the valley of this pleat so that the mountain can come in, I'm going to, and here I need to make a choice of how I have this pleat coming through this other pleat. I'm going to choose to do a compound wrap. So this top pleat, I'm going to split into a 3-way intersection, 1 space out from the triangle. And the pleat going down is going to continue all the way to the edge. The pleat going up in that split is also going to split into a 3-way intersection of mountain folds with one mountain going straight down into this area of valley folds. and the other side going all the way out to the edge. So I did that to put more space between these two pleats, because originally that plate was going to come through one grid spacing away from this one. And that'll probably be helpful with dealing with plate overlaps later on. Next, I've got these two pleats coming into the center of my closed hexagon. So I could have it as very pinched up into the center, but I want to let a hexagon form around that center point. And I'm going to be putting pleats around all the way. I'm noticing with this pleat, it's also going into another pleat. I think I would prefer to have that be a compound wrap also. So my valley fold is coming through. This is going to look slightly different because we are putting our new pleat on top of the pleat that already existed. With the previous compound wrap, we already had the pleat on top and we were introducing the one on the bottom. So with this one, we're going to pop down the mountain fold 1, 2, 3 spaces out from the corner of the closed triangle. And we're going to let the valley fold bounce over that mountain until it hits the valley below. And then it's going to bounce again. So it's going to do a zigzag, just like we saw it doing a zigzag before. And the mountain folds are going to follow that zigzag one grid spacing away. And lay down flat. So now we can bring our pleats more and more flat until we have this kind of platform of the hexagon sitting 2 grid spacings above the rest of the paper. And then I'm going to bop it, grab it, squeeze a little bit, and give it a sharp twist to help it lay all the way flat. And you may need to go in and iron out a little bit, especially with thinner papers. And if you're twisting around really slowly, this can be a more crumpled affair. Next up, we're going to flip the paper over to the B side, and we want to add in a new hybrid hexagon twist. One of the things that I want to look at when I'm adding in this hybrid hexagon is which direction do I want to go in. It's not as clear as yesterday's pattern. And I think I want to go in this direction, working on the compound wrap to my right. And one of the things that I can read from the crease pattern is that the pleats coming from the triangles into this hybrid hexagon are going to be the closed type pleats, and the pleats coming from the closed hexagon are going to be the open type pleats. So if I open up my compound wrap, I've opened it conveniently so that I have this little puffy star, almost like I'm folding an open hexagon twist, but that little point is going to be on the side of a giant triangle that's 3 grid spacings on each edge. Which is apparently very hard to draw. And basically, we're going to have these little pillows as we're going around. This is the the giant triangle of the hybrid hexagon. And we can see this mountain fold is going straight into the center of that giant triangle. This mountain fold is missing the center by 1 grid spacing. So we're going to continue around setting up these folds. My next pleat around that I want to fold is going to go through an existing twist. It's going to be an open type because we went open, closed, now we're due for another open. And I'm going to fold that as a pleat overlap because while this overlap is unfriendly on this side of the paper, that makes it friendly on the other side. And we're going to fold that next twist, the next closed hexagon, on the other side. My next pleat around needs to be a closed type, so that mountain is heading straight into the center. I often think of it as hitting the edge of this giant triangle 1 space in from the corner. Of course, you have to be careful about 1 space in from which side, but it gets the job done. And then coming around, we need our 3rd open type pleat and our 3rd closed type pleat. We've got a pleat overlap in here that we're going to deal with in a moment. And so it was kind of up and we swiveled a little bit to get that to come down. And I'm going to use my bone folder. You can also use your fingers or any other tool that you have for pushing in these little pillows to make them able to fold straight across. So that's pushing like that, making sure that fold is coming to the corners of the grid intersections. And we can press that all the way flat. So from here, we have this pleat overlap that we want to deal with. And one of the things that I can see here is that on the pleats from the closed hexagon that go to triangle twists, I have 1 grid spacing from the center of the hexagon to the corner of the triangle, which means if I have 1 grid spacing to the corner, that's going to be where the valley fold splits off. And then if I open up this pleat overlap, so that was folded over, I'm going to open it up, pop it open, and reinstate this pleat coming from the hybrid hexagon. It'll be easier to fold the triangle wrap if we reinstate this pleat. So we identified 1 spacing to the corner, and then we'll have a 2nd spacing to the center with our new mountain folds splitting off in our evenly oriented directions. Now this pleat is coming back under the tip of the hybrid hexagon, and we're going to, now that this pleat is running under, we're going to erase that pleat that we reinstated so it can wrap underneath. And this is going to cause a accordion pleat in the folds under the tip of the hybrid hexagon. And squash. So we're working on basically the same sequence as yesterday of fold the initial 6 triangles, then fold the hexagon that's on the front of the crease pattern, then flip over, fold the hexagon that's on the back, and the 2 triangles that are in between them. Of course, this time we need to flip over to finish squashing those 2 triangles. We can take that free pleat of the triangle wrap and flip it over and squash our closed triangle. And now I'm going to continue to this pleat overlap which will turn into another closed hexagon twist. Finding where these two mountain folds intersect, I will emphasize that hexagon of grid lines around it and start setting up my remaining pleats. This time I can recognize that having this pleat here is not a problem because we're going to be opening this up next anyways. So I'll let this stay as a very dense pleat overlap. And then I can get the rest of my pleats in place. I do have one additional overlap up above the twist, which will turn into two triangles in a moment. And I'm going to dimple the top of the hexagon, and grab it, and do a sharp twist around. That one came out a little bit messy, but I was able to poke it around and down into a flat state relatively painlessly. So now it's time to figure out where these triangles go around here. And likewise, I can see that on the pleats that go to triangle twists from this hybrid hexagon, I've got one grid spacing from the center to get to the corner, which is going to be where the valley fold splits off, and then another grid spacing to get to the center. So I'm going to open this pleat overlap, opening it all the way and reinstating the pleat from the newer hexagon, and find the mountain folds of my triangle twist that I had located already. And using those folds, I will get rid of this reinstated pleat so it wraps around the pleat coming from the new triangle twist. And squash. From there, we're going to flip the paper over, find that triangle wrap, turn it into a closed triangle twist, find our pleat overlap, rotate that to our right side so it's easy to work on, and we're going to open that up. And when I'm opening this up, I'm also putting in the extension of the pleat from the closed hexagon. So I'm extending that mountain fold out further than I would necessarily need to in most circumstances. And the additional piece of information I need to remember with this hybrid hexagon, the closed type pleats are coming from the triangles and the open type pleats are coming from the hexagons. So this pleat is closed, this pleat is open, so we go one space past the open pleat on the closed pleat to find the center of our hybrid hexagon twist. We've got an open type, a closed type, and the reason why I went one space past this mountain instead of one space before is one space before is where the valley hits. So that's not the center. And so we've got an open, we've got a closed. Our next one needs to be an open type. It's going to need to be one spacing this way from the center. And we can go ahead and put that in. And our next plate needs to be a closed type. It's coming all the way to here. So I need to lift this area up. I can't let it stay down as a valley. It needs to lift up as a mountain and settle in. And then my third open pleat is completing this great big triangle. And my third closed pleat is going straight in to the center and causing a new pleat overlap in there. That will having all of those pleats flat will encourage my twist to settle down, and to get it to flatten all the way, I need to pop those little pockets so I can get new horizontal creases in that area. Technically, by the time all of these creases are folded, they are all horizontal. But I think you understand what I mean. And so now I'm going to return to the pleat overlap between my most recent hexagon and the previous hexagon. And like we saw earlier, we're going to go one spacing to the corner of the new triangle, another spacing to the center. So at the corner, the valley fold is going to split away. And I'm going to open this overlap, letting the mountain and the valley of the pleat from the new hexagon be reinstated. And that's important because when I'm sending this new mountain in, it needs to hit a valley fold. And then I can back off this new pleat until it forms an accordion under the tip of the hybrid hexagon and wraps around. And then I can squash my new triangle twist. Geez, that's a test of grid accuracy there. These two pleats should be laying right next to each other, not slightly on top of each other. So even I have slightly inaccurate grids sometimes. It's fine. And flipping over, I can finish that triangle wrap into a closed triangle twist. From here, I have a new pleat overlap that I had set up, and I'm going to go ahead and open that into the same hexagon that we've been seeing on this side, a closed hexagon twist. This is going to send a pleat under here, and I'm going to let that go through. We had a compound wrap down here. We have another pleat from this hexagon here. And instead of folding this hexagon in half to comply with this pleat, I'm just going to let the layer underneath tuck under, which will give me a double depth pleat as I pass the hexagon. So that's just not tucking things under when I don't have to. And if layers were trapped and it felt like I had to tuck the half of the hexagon under, I would look for ways to untrap those layers with wraps of some kind. So from here, I have all 6 of my pleats around the new closed hexagon. I'm going to grab it and twist it all the way around. One thing I haven't mentioned yet in this video is I'm making sure that I'm twisting all the way around so these mountain folds are straight all the way until they hit the corner of the hexagon. There's no zigzagging. And now we need to fold our triangle and triangle wrap. I'm going to do this without marking the paper this time. So I'm opening the pleat overlap, reinstating the pleat from the newest hexagon, finding the center of my triangle 2 spaces out from the hole of the previous hexagon, wrapping the pleat from the new hexagon underneath, and setting up my pleats so I can squash this new twist and flip and squash the twist on the other side. And if you need to see that with more detail, we have seen those exact steps before back just after I folded the second closed hexagon. So returning to side B, we've got 3 pleats coming into this area where we're going to have a hybrid hexagon twist. So I'll bring that to my right hand side and start opening things up. And I also need to open that compound wrap, so I'm really popping that up. And right now, more than anything, it looks like I should be folding a double open left-handed hexagon twist, but that's not what we're folding today. Remember in the previous hybrid hexagon how I extended the pleat from the closed hexagon as a mountain past where it intersects with this guy? So instead of that dropping down, I need that to continue up as a mountain. And all of a sudden, that looks a lot like my giant triangle. And in fact, it is, and my center point is right there. So I've got 2 of my open type pleats coming from these closed hexagon holes, 1 of my closed type pleats coming from under this group of triangles. And then I need to fill in another closed type pleat headed out this way. And this is kind of a tricky one. You need to really dig up, letting that mountain continue as a mountain fold the whole way in. We're not getting that stuck in the valley, which is that valley under there. We're letting that be a mountain the whole way in. This will cause a pleat overlap with the pleat from the closed hexagon. That's where we're going to put 2 triangles. Then we have the 3rd edge of our central big triangle and our 3rd pleat coming in to the center, and the overlaps on that last pleat for the 2 triangles to come. And we can go ahead and squash the new twist. And come back to these pleat overlaps to open up, and this one is an identical copy to ones we've already done, so I'm going to do it without drawing. So opening up that pleat overlap, extending the pleat from the newer hexagon, finding the 3-way intersection of mountain folds 2 spaces out from the closed hexagon hole. Another piece of information that we have is that this is going to be a tube pleat in here, so that's duplicating the spacing cue. And then we need a triangle wrap that's going to give us an accordion pleat under the tip of the hybrid hexagon. And squash. Flipping over, I can squash the twist set up by that triangle wrap I just made, and then come over to this remaining pleat overlap, which it looks like will be easiest to fold the 2 triangles from this side, so very convenient. I'm going to come 2 spaces out from the hybrid hexagon hole, put in my 3-way intersection of mountains, and you'll notice that my pleat from the closed hexagon is already on top, so that's very convenient to erase and wrap around as I'm setting up this new closed triangle twist. And then the last step is to flip over and squash that final closed triangle. So that's what's going on for folding this pattern. If we wanted to see this pattern with more repeats, we could continue that rule of where these 6 triangles are coming together. They're this closely spaced. We're going to see 3 of the same thing around the closed hexagons. We're going to see 3 of the same thing around the hybrid hexagons. And basically, we've got these meta blocks, which is a hexagon in the middle and 3 triangles in the corners. And that's functioning in the same way as the meta blocks of 4 triangles, 1 triangle in the center and 3 triangles in the corners, that we saw in days 2, 4, and 5. So that's kind of the idea, where we have these meta blocks that are then alternating between each other. And we can do more with the spacing, and you'll see both of those options of the strict alternation and the alternation with some spacing variation in the Advent of Tess ebook at gatheringfolds.com, and that's also available on Origami Shop, so the Origami Shop website and the Origami USA online store. So happy folding, everyone. Do tag me at Gathering Folds on Instagram and Facebook so I can see what you folded and share it for everyone else to see. And use hashtag Advent of Tess or Advent of Tess 24 so more people can see where you're getting these beautiful patterns from. So that is all for today. For tomorrow's lesson, we're going to be using a new hybrid hexagon twist, and we'll be returning to a familiar structure. So a hexagon surrounded by 6 triangles, surrounded by now these hybrid hexagons with 6 more triangles. And that'll be the structure that we use for the rest of Advent of Tess, just with different hybrid hexagons and on different parts in the middle. So happy folding, and see you for tomorrow's tutorial.